Just confirming to Griffin that we are on video for this. Hi, Griffin. So nice to see you. Hello everyone as well. Welcome back to the Power Hour podcast. Today I didn't ask how to say your surname.
That's okay. I'm Griffin Lickfeldt.
Lickfeldt.
Lickfeldt. Yeah.
Awesome. Griffin
Yeah.
Lickfeldt, Power Platform Consultant at Hitachi Solutions. Hitachi Solutions? That's it, right? And host of the
Yes.
Power Talks podcast with me. We'll be delving into his career, some of the lessons he's taken from consulting, and what he's learned from putting himself out there through his YouTube channel, Citizen Developer, which you can check out in the description, and of course his LinkedIn. Griffin, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. I'm super stoked to be here, and yeah, I love. This is a super cool opportunity to get on someone else's platform, and I don't know, maybe share a couple things that might be insightful to somebody. So
Yeah,
let's go.
absolutely. I love it. And we made a bit of a joke saying that you've never been on this side of things. So effectively the interviewer getting interviewed, which is awesome. So as I mentioned, and as I mentioned for all my guests, I stalked them for a while so I can do my research. And you've got quite a lot of consulting experience, and that's kind of a side of things where I haven't been a part of, being in a big consultancy such as Hitachi or ANS or Capgemini. So I guess the first question I wanted to ask you was, what are some lessons you've taken from your consultancy experiences that may, someone from just working with end users probably hasn't had exposure to?
Yeah. So I am a storyteller, so I'll try to keep things short. But I basically got started with the Power Platform and consulting. Like, it was like my first big boy job, I guess we could call it, out of university or when I graduated college, and it was a super cool learning opportunity where I think the most important things about being a consultant are your soft skills. And that's a lot of like what I like to talk about with guests on the Power Talk show, on my show, in that a lot of times the like language of being a consultant is not specific to the Power Platform or Microsoft Dynamics or, software consulting. It's like broader and much larger than that, and even like applies to a lot of the skills of even sales, really. And so that's like kind of one of my biggest things I've learned is like, especially in a day and age where we don't know what the world will look like 10 years from now with just the rapid innovation of technology and everything, like creating Power Automate flows might be obsolete in 5, 10 years. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be worth a ton of my time really perfecting all of the nuances of building Power Automate flows as opposed to really sharpening my soft skills, the things that like make me more valuable, I guess,
Mm,
as an employee, and things that are more transferable as well.
mm,
So like if I were to start consulting in a different space, which I have no intentions to, but if I were to start consulting, I would like to think I'm not going to start from ground zero, if that makes
mm.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that would kind of be like one of my bigger pieces of advice is just like learn like the art of communication and consulting, and just like being authentic, not being, too high on your horse, I guess we could say, like being okay with saying you don't necessarily know something, and really making the person or the client that you're working with like really feel like that you care about them, not
Mm,
just the your hourly rate. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like really trying to convey that like, hey, the best solution for you is the best solution for me as well.
mm.
And sharpening your communication skills so that you can actually effectively communicate those things well. Because I think a lot of people, they try to say the right thing, and what they're thinking has good intentions, but sometimes their word choice or the way they say things, and I'm not perfect either, but it just might not come across the best way. And I think that's
Mm.
just simply uh, the best way to fix that is upgrading your communication skills. Does that kind
Yeah.
of make sense? I'm a rambler, but
Not at
hopefully that
all.
got to where you were wanting. But
No, absolutely. And it kind of raises an interesting point as well, regarding big consultancies and the way that effectively your time is viewed as billable, right? So how do you balance that gap between kind of billable hours and trying to deliver as much value to your client as possible?
yeah, so that's a great question, and I think that's something that I, at the beginning of last year, really learned the hard way. So I think, fortunately, I'm in a scenario where a lot of times the projects that we're on, I have what's called a solution architect. And that solution architect is ultimately in charge of the team delivering on what the statement of work says, like what we're contractually obligated to deliver on. The solution architect is making sure that we do that in a certain amount of time. And my role as a kind of solution consultant is to take the pieces that the architect designs for me and just go and build them. And so I will say a lot of that responsibility falls on the solution architect as opposed to the solution consultant. But to your point, I think I was on a project where I was given an opportunity to really step up and be more than just a consultant and do some of these architectural skills. And I think at the time it was a pretty big reach for me. I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't think I did a very good job. And I think what ended up happening is I got lost in all these little minute details in the user experience or certain fields on a view or whatever, as opposed to like thinking about the big rocks that were fundamental to the solution, like working, like the little integrations that we wanted to connect to different systems and, these different things that I had put on the back burner. And so I had really misprioritized the important stuff for stuff that I kind of knew how to do, which was building Power Apps and Power Automate flows and stuff. Does that kind of make sense? And so I think there is a fine line in like, how do we balance that between billing and, giving the right amount of value? I think that like, this kind of comes back to like really being a good communicator, because you obviously want to, at that time was like, I just want to give these people the best system I possibly can. Right. And build them the best system. But it came to a point where it's like, hey, we don't have a ton of runway left for all these other things that we're on the hook for, because we had spent so much time. I had spent so much time doing things that were arguably less like fundamental or less crucial, if that kind of makes sense. And so I think there is a fine balance of I think you got to give like little wins, like say you're in a demo. An example I think of is, say I'm in a demo and the client's like, hey, can we move this field on the form over here, whatever. It's like, all right, yeah, we'll do that. Like realistically, that takes like 5 minutes. So it's like, okay, yeah fine. We'll move the field, like who cares? Like, but to the client, those little wins really feel valuable to them, like, and so I think those are the times where you can really get a quick, easy win as well for making the client feel like they're getting a ton of value, as opposed to just like trying to do it all, because you simply can't, you simply just can't. So,
yeah. And I feel like sometimes, as developers and even architects, we want perfection, but something I've realized through my experience is, no project is perfect. Everything has its issues, everything has its fair share of problems. And it gets me thinking about consultancies in general, because I've never worked in a consultancy, but I know plenty of people who have. So, Griffin, could you lay out for me and also for other people, what are some of the benefits and what are some of the things that could be improved? Not even that could be improved, some of the downsides, to be completely blunt, of being in a big consultancy, would you say, for someone looking to make that move, for example, in an end user to a big consultancy?
Yeah, so I personally like really enjoy what I do, and I don't think many young professionals, people in their 20s, can say that. So I feel very blessed and thankful to say that. Some of the benefits, I think that, and I'm in a situation as well. I don't have a ton of experience with different firms and different partners and different things. So I've really, like I said, all of my experience is through this lens of working at Hitachi Solutions. And so one thing that I'm really thankful for that in my experience is, like, I would say Hitachi is a like medium to large size company. Like, there are not thousands of CE consultants, like it is small enough where I'm able to kind of know everyone, or at least recognize everyone's like Teams photo, like I recognize people's names and whatever. And so it does have the ability to be really, to have a personal, well, not just a number, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Good.
And I really appreciate the culture, because if I have any sort of question, there's generally 3 or 4 people that I can kind of reach out to, whether they're just my friends or like a more established career mentor that I can reach out to and have questions answered. Even if it's little things of like, hey, can we hop on a quick 10-minute? I don't know what's going on with this flow syntax and like why it doesn't like this expression. I have no idea. Can't find anything. So I do think that is a huge benefit, is you do have the ability to like lean on other people and their knowledge as well. And especially as somebody who started without a ton of experience was really huge. I also think that just naturally there is a little bit more stability in a sense of my role. I am strictly delivery. So I am not in charge of going and finding deals and making sure contracts close and discussing bill rates or anything like that. When I get involved is after the contract's already signed and it's like, hey, we're going to do this, and hey, Griffin's available, and someone puts me on the project, so to speak, with other team members. So I also enjoy that I obviously have to think. I'm not saying I don't have to think about it, but it is generally provides an opportunity for just like my work comes to me and this is kind of my lane and I'm able to stay in it. Now, a disadvantage is I think that the skills of maybe being solo on a really small team where you are doing, like, you have much broader skills are super valuable, especially just when it comes to transferable skills, like consulting skills. Something I am a little envious about is people who have that like sales or pre-sales experience and like really meeting with a customer, casting that vision of what the system could look like and what it could do for them, and then delivering on it, and then training users on it and seeing, how they react and how much they enjoy it or whatever. I kind of come in the middle and leave before the end, I guess, if that makes sense. And so I think a disadvantage in a way is, I'm envious of those people that have that full, A to Z experience, I guess. And I wouldn't say you necessarily get that. You become a little bit more compartmentalized. As well, I think that I am the type of person, not everybody is, but I am the type of person where I like to think that I could be rewarded for my effort. Like I never played basketball, but I would like to think like I'm going to be the person with the ball when there's like 3 seconds left, right? Like that's the type of person I am. And maybe that's just like the athlete in me or whatever. And I think there's something really like cool about being solo or a small team, because you have to go and find these deals. You have to close them. You have to, cast the vision. You have to deliver. You have to do all this stuff. And in my current role, being, compartmentalized, I guess, in a way, I am a little subject to what other people, the contracts other people sell, if that makes sense. And like how the business is doing, I am more subject to that. So that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but just something I've noticed. And, maybe depending on whoever's listening, their personality and what they value, they might see that as a positive or a negative. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's really valuable for people to know if they should make that jump or if they should stay where they're at. And I guess on staying where you're at, I've had a lot of people kind of reach out to me and ask me, they're working 5, 6, 7 years in a specific field. They've had experience with Power Apps. They kind of just build things in-house, and they're looking to make that jump into a full-time Power Platform position, either in a consultancy or an end user. To my understanding, you were an accounting major, and I feel like even the Power Platform in general is big with accountants. They can automate a lot of the boring stuff. So I feel like it might resonate in that sense. So I guess, Griffin, what advice would you give to those people looking to move from more of a citizen developer role into a full-time Power Platform role? Like, what can they do?
Yeah. First, subscribe to the Citizen Developer channel. No, I'm just kidding.
Love it. Shameless plug.
Link in the description. No, it's all good. But so I'll share a quick story. So like I said, I feel very fortunate, very blessed. When I graduated, and pretty much right before I graduated, I was studying entrepreneurship and accountancy. So I was pursuing two bachelor degrees. And pretty much in my last semester, I was like, I do not want to be an accountant. I always liked math and was good at math. And so I was like, okay, this combines math and business and whatever. Well, I don't know if I just had a professor I really didn't like or what, but I was just like, I could not be an accountant. So I never actually sat for like my CPA exam or anything like that. But fortunately, through a reference, the pastor of my church actually worked for Hitachi, completely different role, completely non-functional role, but worked at Hitachi. He's like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this Power App CE consulting thing. I was like, all right. And at the time, Hitachi was having what was called this launch program. And basically what it was like a 3-month training program where we were employees of the company. It wasn't like an unpaid internship, but we were employees of the company, and we were given an opportunity to spend 3 months to get like Power Platform certified. So PL 100 or PL 900, PL 200, like AZ 910 or MB 910, those different exams, kind of the Power Platform fundamentals, as well as we kind of went through a mock project where we were like customizing our own Hitachi internal system and we had a full sprint, and we had our daily Scrum meetings where we talked about stuff that was going on, and we use Azure DevOps to manage all of our work. I don't know if people out there as well. It's a work managing tool to figure out the tasks and things you got to develop. And so it was like a full hands-on experience of doing that. And so that was my experience. So what would be my advice to other people? Because at the time as well, the industry has slowed a little bit since then. So I don't think there's that many programs out there. So I feel like it would be silly for me to say, oh, find the launch program. I don't think that would be very helpful. But I think that something that you can do is get a couple certifications. And I say that people will say certifications don't matter. And to that, I will say, okay, you're right. Like, just because you have a certification doesn't mean you can do everything. But I think there is something valuable. They're generally, I want to say they're between like $50 and $150, depending on the exam, US dollars, depending on the exam. And realistically, if you spend like 2 hours a day, you could, in a couple of weeks, like in a week, 2 hours a day, you could get the PL PL 900. You could get the
100%.
MB 910. Like, they might seem really challenging, but I would challenge you, like, realistically, like, these are not hard. And the PL 200, I would say, that might take a little bit more time, but nonetheless, like, I was able to get the PL 900, the first one, within like a week of starting.
Yeah.
And then I was able to get the PL 200 within like 4 or 5 weeks of starting, so about a month later. And so I would kind of start there, because some credentials behind you would really help. But also, like, I don't know, like, I think there's something so unique about the Microsoft industry, the Power Platform industry, the software development industry, and it might just be because of the whole Microsoft MVP program or whatever, but the community involvement is unmatched like any other space. And so, like, if you just start sharing things you're learning, like simply just things you're learning, you don't have to share anything groundbreaking, but just share about the fact that you just learned what Power Automate is and what it could possibly do. And, throw a photo of the Power Automate logo in your LinkedIn post or whatever. Like, just sharing what you're learning online to other people, I think, is also a really huge benefit to building kind of your brand. Because after, I don't know, if you do say 1 post or 2 posts a week, after like 6 months, like, you could be considered an expert, in some way, shape, or form for an associate or a beginner level consultant role. And so that would kind of be my advice. Like, spend some time. You don't have to spend a ton of time, but spend a little time getting a couple certifications, spinning up some trial environments to really learn it and get hands-on a little bit, and sharing what you're learning online. And I know Hitachi, especially at the time, wasn't the only company doing these sort of programs, these kind of launch beginner programs. And so I would recommend, like, reaching out to different people, and even just messaging people, DMing people on LinkedIn. Like, I feel like that is like the meta of like finding connections. Like, that's how I find every guest for my show. And like, I just shoot them a message on LinkedIn, and it might seem scary, but like, shooting your resume effectively in a DM or something, and just asking, hey, are programs for people who are wanting to get into it, for citizen developers available, whatever, anything, that person's gonna, remember your name for a week, you know? Be like,
Yeah.
oh, this person had a ton of initiative. Like, that was pretty cool to see, you know?
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, my advice,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes any sense. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. And there was a lot in there. And I think on the certifications, I don't agree with the precedent that they're not valuable, because I know for a fact that certifications at the very least, I don't think you can justify them to your skills so much. So I don't think you can say, oh, I've got the PL 600, so I'm a solution architect. I don't think that's a thing, and I don't think it should be a
yeah.
thing. But I think there's a lot to be said for people getting started about certifications, because it could it could just get you through the door, and it could just get you into that initial screening process. And I think that's just so important when you're starting off, just that bit of belief, getting into that first interview, even if it doesn't work out, just being there and being able to answer questions around that, I think is so, so important. And the second thing you mentioned was around LinkedIn, reaching out to people, showing your work. Don't underestimate the power of LinkedIn. I think it's so powerful. And myself and Sean Astrahan did a session a few days ago now, I think, around LinkedIn growth for Power Platform professionals, and it seemed like it really resonated with people, because people were posting a bunch after that, and people who hadn't previously got more than 50 reactions in their posts all of a sudden are getting 500 plus, and seeing that for them is amazing. And there's a whole argument to be made around don't tie your happiness to LinkedIn reactions, etc. But I think there's a lot to be said for it positioning you as an expert, and therefore increasing opportunities in your career, increasing opportunities for freedom, and freedom for your family, freedom of location. I think these stuff, at least, are very important to me, and I hope are important to the people who also resonate with me as well. So yeah, a lot of gold to be taken from that, Griffin. Thank you. Um, let's talk about goals, because
Well,
I saw somewhere, don't ask me where because I don't remember, that you are very goal orientated. So what is your process for setting goals? Is it a yearly thing? Is it a daily thing? Is it a monthly thing? Like, how do you manage your progress?
dude, that's a phenomenal question. I wish I had more of a science to it. I do really value goals. And I think even from like a young age, like middle school, early high school, so like seventh, eighth, ninth grade, started to realize the importance of them, and setting big goals for myself, you know. And I think that I was able to realize the importance of that early on. And so like my system now, I don't know, I'm in this limbo of like, quick tangent. I'm in this limbo of like, I generally am fairly creative and entrepreneurial, so I have a lot of ideas to do cool things or whatever. So I'm trying to balance like pursuing every idea and setting a goal for it and going and doing that, but also just like being steadfast and like focusing on one thing.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like
mm,
doing one thing for a long time really well. So I'm like trying to balance that. But my process for setting goals, I think the obviously the first step is like truly understanding what you want. I am not an entrepreneur or a business channel by no means, but I like watching certain people that are like on YouTube that are like entrepreneurs or, you know, business channels.
mm.
And there's this guy Alex Harmozy. I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but
Oh,
he's pretty big.
100%.
At least you do. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I take a lot of what he says with a grain of salt, but I appreciate how like black and white he is, and he's super hardworking guy, whatever. And he kind of says this idea that like the reality is that everything comes with a cost. And so I think that, you know, we might have these really big goals to say my goal is I want to have a YouTube channel with 10,000 subscribers. Like, okay. But that goal, while that would be great, that goal will cost me something. Even if it's as simple as it'll cost me some time to make YouTube videos or whatever. And that's time I'm not going to be able to spend with my family or with my friends or, you know, with any of my hobbies or whatever. And so understanding that there is a cost to all your goals and really understanding what it is you actually want. Because I think that this like goals that we have for ourselves typically take longer and cost more than what we kind of think. And like specifically for me, I feel like I'll just bring it back to, I guess, the Citizen Developer channel. Like, I feel like when I first started, I had like really, really big goals, and I think my channel is a success. I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I met those like really big astronomical goals that I had at the time. And so I think that the reality is a lot of times goals cost more and take longer to actually achieve. So like setting realistic goals and really thinking through what it is you actually want. Like, do you actually want to make, $250,000 next year? Like, that is going to cost you a ton, and that's a ton of money. I don't make anywhere near that. All right, pump the brakes. But you know what I mean? Like a lot of times people will have a financial goal or a career goal. I want to be a CEO of a tech company as a big goal. Like, okay, well, the CEOs of tech companies are traveling 35 weeks a year and, whatever, and are doing this, and, they're not spending time with their families or whatever. So it's like, there's costs to things. And so recognizing that. I'm realizing I'm not actually answering your question, but nonetheless, that's, I guess, what popped into mind. How do I set goals? I wouldn't say I subscribe to like every January 1st I set a New Year's resolution. I wouldn't necessarily say I operate like that. I think viewing goals, this is a good metaphor I had heard when I was younger, like viewing goals through like a telescope or a microscope or anything that can zoom in and out, say through a camera. And that with a goal, you want to be able to like zoom way in and say, hey, a year from now, I want to have 10,000 subscribers. I'll just use that. A year from now, I want to have 10,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And so that's really effective to like zoom way in and see that and write it on your mirror or whatever. You also need to be able to zoom out and say, okay, if I want to achieve that goal in a year from now, what do I need to achieve every quarter, right? In 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then 12 months. Like, what do those benchmarks need to be? So zooming out a little bit and defining those benchmarks. That's like, okay, to hit this in 3 months, what do I need to do every month? So zooming out even more and even zooming out into like the day to day, right? So it's like, what does that look like? Okay, I need to spend an hour a day on the YouTube channel, whether that's making a thumbnail, editing a video, recording a video, brainstorming ideas, scripting a video, whatever. I need to spend an hour, 2 hours a day. I need to gain X many connections on LinkedIn through sending connections to other people or, commenting on people's posts or what, you know what I mean? And like defining what those goals are, even down to the day to day. Because if all you do is just like look at this like really zoomed in, year from now, I'm going to have 10,000 subscribers. Year from now, I'm going to have 10,000 subscribers. Then you're not going to actually make any progress because it's so big and untangible that it's like it's impossible to actually see you really achieving that. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing measurable or actionable on that. So being able to zoom way out and things that are practical and actionable of things you can control. Because ultimately, I can't control someone hitting the subscribe button on the channel, right? And same with you, right? You can't control someone listening to this, but you can control, the quality that you put into it, the packaging that you put into it, the research that you provide, the people that you share it with. Like you can control all of those things. So defining and looking at your goals and really thinking about the inputs, the things that you can control for that goal.
Yeah.
If that does that work?
No, absolutely. No, that's amazing. And I truly love your philosophy on it because I think it's firstly what you said on focus. I think it's so important. Like I don't know if you can see it, but I have like a whiteboard in the back of my room, and over here is like a graph. And for the people listening, there's a graph on my whiteboard, and it says effort 20% and then results 80%. And that's not to say that you need to work less to make more of the result. It's that focusing on the efforts that get you the most results is what is the most important. And we can get into the 80-20 rule, very, cringe productivity hack. But, it's something I used to remind me because I used to be super, like you, Griffin. I'm always ambitious. Used to be, I don't think it's ever going to leave me. And I used to do a lot of things to try. Like I tried to do a marketing agency. I tried to have my own personal YouTube channel. Like I have videos archived on my personal YouTube channel where I was just like posting things about, you know, meditation and roles and yeah, really cringy stuff. Now I'm looking back at it. Those videos will never see the light of day, by the way. But you know, like I tried my hand in a lot of things, but as soon as I focused in the Power Platform, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put everything away. And as soon as I focused on that one thing, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do Power Platform. Like I'm just gonna do it for my career. I'm gonna do it for my business. I'm gonna do it for my community engagement. I'm just gonna put everything around this. And I appreciate some people don't want to make that sacrifice, but I can say for a fact that that's what changed things for me, at least personally. Like, and you also said an interesting thing around kind of having these big ambitious goals is fun, but you almost don't believe it yourself. And if you're struggling to believe that stuff yourself, it's really hard to do the day-to-day things you need to actually achieve it. So let's take LinkedIn growth, for example. I had a goal of starting off and I was like, okay, like I want to post every day and kind of see where it goes. I'm on 10,000 followers now, which is incredible. So thank you everyone who follows my posts. But I have confidence that if I lost everything on LinkedIn and had to start from scratch, I could do that again. And I've got all those lessons. But 50,000 is like completely unreachable to me. And I can't even think about what I need to do to get there because I've never done it. But if I do something, you can start thinking about, okay, if I lost everything, I think I'd be able to do it again. And I think there's something to be said on that way. And there's something to be said on if your goal's too ambitious, then you can't even believe it yourself. So yeah, there's a lot of gold there, Griffin. Thank you for that. You spoke about YouTube there, and your setup is one of the best I've seen in the Power Platform space. I have to say, it is awesome.
Thanks.
Like you've got a
Thanks.
thing in the background, like showing your YouTube channel, saying subscribe, which is amazing. You've got your yeah, it's lovely. You've got your like your greenery, your plants. So like, kind of what thought went into that, and how would people? I guess my question is like, if people want to make content like you do and want to be consistent with it, how important is it to set up an environment like yours, and what would you recommend for them to do?
Yeah. So I guess I would first say, I think right now I have 130, maybe 130 videos. I'm not sure on my whole channel, and 129 of them are recorded with my iPhone. So we're recording this about a month and a half after Christmas. I got this camera for Christmas. It was an amazing Christmas gift. Shout out to my wife. But nonetheless, like I just want to tell you, you can get so far without like expensive equipment. And I guess initial setup was I used my iPhone. And I got this basically glorified selfie stick that I could make a tripod, you know, and I got this $40 light off of Amazon. There's this big kind of diffused light, and I hung a $2 shower curtain, like white shower curtain over it, so that it was nice and soft and whatever. So like you can get a really good setup for 100, you know, if you really want to make video, 100, 150 bucks, you know, I have a $50 microphone. Like, you can get a really good setup for 100, 150 bucks. You don't need a ton of really good stuff. I also, when I first started, I'm really not trying to plug the channel. I'm not. But when I first started, my first video I recorded on my iPhone, and the video content is great. It's a AI 900 certification study guide. The content is great. I'm confident if you watch that, you can absolutely pass that exam. The video is horrible. The audio is horrible. The video is horrible. Basically, I learned that after that video, iPhones record on a certain file format, so I had to like convert it. So the whole thing is like gray and fuzzy and like, it's horrible. The angle is horrible. Everything about it is horrendous. So when I first started, I knew absolutely nothing about video editing, video production, lighting, cameras, like YouTube thumbnails. Like I knew absolutely nothing. A year and a half ago, I had zero experience. You could not have had less experience. But I just started binge watching YouTube content on how to make YouTube content. And I think that, and I appreciate what you're saying, because I would be lying if I told you I don't put a ton of effort into the setup and the quality of things. I do put a ton of effort into it. But it just has given me an opportunity to really learn like another transferable skill. You know, if I don't know, if I wanted to make videos on my own personal channel about who knows what, like I could go and do that. And I now have the skills to at least make a nice looking video. So that's what I did. So I would recommend if people wanted to learn how to make good videos, I'll plug 2 channels. One called Think Media on YouTube. Think Media, they do a lot of like how to create YouTube tutorials, but they also do a lot of like tech reviews as well. So certain cameras or microphones, whatever, which can be great. Like I said, equipment really isn't that important in my opinion. And then there's another channel called vidIQ, like VIDIQ. These 2 channels they make content on how to make YouTube content and how to grow. So I would say I learned a lot of what I know from them primarily, especially at first, and they're pretty beginner friendly. Like they're not fancy and talking about camera settings and all that stuff. So I would recommend people check out that. To your question, I'm sorry, I'm on another tangent.
Not at all.
To your question of the importance of a setup. So I think if you mentioned posting on LinkedIn every day, right? Like most people, I'm sure most people listening, and including myself, I work full time. Like I am a Power Platform consultant for 40 hours a week. And so I need to find a way to create a YouTube video once a week with as little time and effort as possible without like compromising on quality, right? And so I think that finding ways to reduce the friction to creating is important. Like if every time I wanted to record a video, I had to go get my camera out of a bag, put it on a tripod, set the tripod up, go get my light out of the closet, plug my light in, get it set up, get the settings right, get my mic out, run the cable, plug it in, test it, blah, 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 turn this light on, turn that on, put my plant on the shelf, whatever. Like if I had to do that every time, I would be a lot less motivated to create. And so just finding ways to reduce that friction for whatever that is for you. And I will say the reducing of friction is where you do see those improvements with equipment. I will be honest. Like, obviously, now that I don't record on my iPhone anymore, I don't have to set up my phone and the tripod and everything every time on my desk and whatever. But now I just have my camera and I have it on a little stand and it's just here 24/7. So all I have to do is I just pop my mic up, pop it in, and I can go and hit record. So finding ways to reduce the friction to creating, it's because just like anything, like building a habit, the harder it is for you to practice that habit, the harder it is, like the less likely you'll be to do it. So finding ways to reduce the friction. It's funny you mentioned the plants. They're all fake. These plants are not real. And so yeah, that's I guess kind of the advice that I have come to realize. I guess one last thing on video quality. The most important thing about a good video is your lighting. It is not, excluding audio, it is your lighting. The camera quality, we're recording in 720p right now, so like less than high definition, but I'm sure people might think I still look decent, hopefully. The reason for that is because of the lighting, which you can find really great cheap lights, and check out vidIQ and Think Media on YouTube for lighting tips. But spend $50 on a light instead of spending $1,500 or whatever you want to spend on a camera, which you could easily spend. So like, that's, I guess, my video creation and setup advice.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I had to ask you because I think I've told you this before and I'll say it publicly as well. Like, and I just said it now. I think your content is amongst like the best produced, and I genuinely enjoy watching it because I think nowadays there's just so much content. Like maybe in the past it didn't have to be so well produced because there wasn't too many people doing it, but now the truth is if you put like a 320p video on LinkedIn, no one's watching that, which kind of sucks. But I would
just say I don't want to throw any shade to anybody, and like the OG content creators, MVPs, like whatever. Like I am not throwing any shade. These people are rock stars and have been doing this stuff for decades. But also, I remember when I first started, like 2.5 years ago, learning about the Power Platform. Like the amount of times I'm watching a tutorial or a video, and like it was just distracting. Like whether the audio was really bad or like they're I'm just trying to figure out how to build a dashboard in Dynamics. Like, why are we
Yeah.
talking about some random tangent? You know what I mean? Like, and I get there's this idea of like letting your personality shine through and building an audience of friends and fans, whatever. But at the same time, you need to understand like the YouTube game as well, you know? And so
Mm.
I definitely put a ton of effort into it. I really appreciate you saying that because I feel like I feel that way as well. But nonetheless, I put a ton of effort into it. And I think that like, you know, yeah, I think there's definitely some people out there that if they put a little bit more effort into the, not just like the content quality, but like, you know, like what they're talking about, but like the quality itself, it
Mm.
just takes from a viewer's perspective. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to enjoy your content.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
you want to make it sound as good as you can make it, so they're not thinking, "What did they say? Man, what is this hiss? Like, why is it
Mm.
so raspy? What's this buzzing noise?" They don't want to hear that. You know, especially when you're starting. Like myself, I started with like 300 connections on LinkedIn, which were just all my college friends. You know, like whatever, like zero experience, zero background, starting from nothing. Like, I needed to make sure that every time someone clicked on my video, there was nothing that wanted to make them not watch it, right? From a quality perspective. So that's, I guess, my advice and kind of what I would say and just learn. There's so many good creators out there that talk about how to create, you know, good video. And I would be doing them a disservice to try to explain everything that they do so well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And when we think like content creators within the Power Platform, like three immediately come to mind: Shane Young, Reza Durrani, and Lisa Crosby. And I feel like they're so big, because each of them have individual traits. And in the sense of, I think Shane Young's personality shines through. It's always fun watching one of his videos. I think Reza Durrani, if you want facts, if you want to know how to do something end to end, he's got so many like 40-minute, 1 hour, I think he's got 3 hour videos out there. So like you will see all of the nitty gritty. And Lisa Crosby, I think in terms of model driven apps and dynamics, I think now she's made the move to Copilot, but obviously she's still supporting those applications. I think she's the go-to. So I think there's plenty of opportunity out there because in terms of content, honestly, in the Power Platform, there isn't a lot. And that's, in that sense, I don't mean there's not a lot of content because the community is always posting every day. There's so many events, there's so many kind of conversations going on LinkedIn specifically. But I think from a video YouTube perspective, I think there is so much opportunity there. So I think anyone listening, see what you can do in that respect. Then, Griffin, what's your advice for people who start and then give up? They don't see the results that they're looking for, and
man, all right, could I be vulnerable? Could I be real?
please, let's be real.
So I on the channel, and we mentioned at the beginning, I've kind of started a podcast called the Power Talk series, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
about 40 episodes in. Most of them are where, you know, just like this, where I'm talking to guests, and a lot of the conversations are around Power Platform career development and soft skill development, not technical or anything like that. Called Power Talks. And I'm gonna be honest, I after about 40 episodes of trying different thumbnail ideas, different intro ideas, I really haven't seen much of any growth.
Mm.
And so I definitely have been feeling like disheartened over the last couple months of like, dang, if, you know, 40 weeks ago, because I do one every week, 40 weeks ago, if you would have told me that like, hey, you're going to do 40 of these and experience zero growth, I don't know if I
Mm.
would have started.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I've just been like in this season of like, I'll keep chugging along, I guess, because I don't like to think of myself as a quitter.
Mm.
And I think that's something that's really special is I'm trying to change how I measure success. And it's really easy, especially on YouTube, where it publicly displays how many people watch it and how many people like it. It's
Mm.
really hard to not compare yourself. And I'm trying to change how I measure success from a stance of the amount of people that view it, or what's called my click-through rate, the amount of people that click on the video, or
Mm.
how long people watch. And instead, okay, well, what are how quality are these conversations that I'm having? How many friends am I making? How many people are commenting or DMing me are leaving YouTube to go to connect with me on LinkedIn to send me a DM like, hey, that video was awesome. Like, really enjoyed it, blah, blah, blah. I had one person, they sent me a video of them like recording themselves telling me how much they liked the episode. And like these videos are getting like 50 to 150 views. And like, so I don't know. I'm trying to change how I'm measuring success because kind of like back to like what I can control. I ultimately cannot control how many views a video gets. I kind of can, right? Like by making a better thumbnail or a better intro or whatever, but realistically I can't. And so trying to change how I measure success, I feel like. And I feel like if you're measuring success by things you can't control, then it's super easy to want to quit because it feels like it's impossible to achieve, you know, what you want. And so you're like, well, I can't ever do this. But the reality is you can't control that anyways. So trying to change how I measure success has been huge for me. And the small handful of people that have reached out or commented on different things and told me how much they enjoyed it, like, I just want you to know, like, that means the world to me.
Yeah.
It truly does. It helps me want to keep going and producing because I feel like, especially longer form content, it's much harder to build an audience, but the audience is much more like sticky. Like the audience is going to stick with you. You could probably make an episode completely unrelated to the Power Platform and you potentially could still get the exact same amount of people because now you have this audience that listens to you, you know, and enjoys your personality, Howden. And they're just like, all right, now they're willing to just listen to you talk about whatever. Or, you know, so long form content especially is really hard to grow, but the audience is sticky. And I'm finding that it has been really rewarding in ways other than how I was first measuring success.
There was so much to take from that. First of thank you for sharing that. That's like that's a feeling I resonate with a lot. I think specifically on seeing it through the lens of effort instead of results, I think it's so hard. I think it's so hard nowadays just because as soon as we're opening LinkedIn, as soon as we're opening YouTube, we're seeing videos that get constantly 100K views, 1 million views. We're seeing TikToks that get hundreds of millions of views, billions of views even. And it's so hard to measure yourself in comparison to those people because the truth of the matter is, if you do that, then you're going to lose the one foundation that they used to get there, most of them, which is consistency. And I think consistency is just so important. And I've personally tried to like take the time off LinkedIn because I used to check it like every hour or every 2 hours and it was getting to my head. So now I leave LinkedIn until the end of the day. So I do my most important work in the morning and then I'll check LinkedIn at the end of the day, reply to comments, etc. But yeah, there was just so much gold in what you said, Griffin. And I think it's something Alex Hormozy stands by as well, right?
Yeah, I think one last thing, I'll be quick.
Yeah.
So I any advice as well, if you want to start creating, and this might be a hot take, but I think the worst thing you can wish for is going viral. I think there's this idea that like, oh, if I can just make one video just like pop off, then my channel will be set. So let me tell you how much of a fallacy that is. So I first started creating, first YouTube video was September of 2023. So like fall. Like that was like right around the time Microsoft introduced Copilot. Like Copilot Studio wasn't even a thing, but like this idea that Microsoft Copilot was going to be, you know, this generative AI thing was coming to Microsoft, whatever. And like right around that time. And so in October and November, I created 2 videos. One was Microsoft Copilot explained in like 4 minutes. And it was a 4-minute video just like explaining what it was. And the other video was an honest review of Microsoft Copilot.
Right.
In those 2 videos, now granted, I'm like 2 months into creating YouTube content. Those 2 videos, in my definition, went viral. I think those 2 videos combined have like almost 30,000 views. And this was all within like before the end of November, like all within a month. Like just absolutely went crazy. And I was like, man, I've cracked the YouTube code. I'm gonna be able to retire next year. I'm gonna be YouTube famous in the Power platform. Like, man, I am set.
Mm,
Those videos are double or triple the views of any other video on my channel. So I had
wow.
those videos and then I've been proceeding to make content for the last 15 months and I have not had a video perform as well as those ones. Those are the two most viewed videos on my channel. Now I have had videos that through search are, pushing into that 4, 5, 6,000 view range. But that's been over the course of 18 months, a couple
Mm,
views a day, whatever. So nothing that has been like that. And it has caused me to for a while, I've just was really struggling and feeling like my channel felt like a failure because I was doing 2 videos a week, just
mm,
chasing this. It was like an addiction, that I was
mm.
chasing for this thing. So that would be my best advice. Don't go viral, obviously shoot to, and grow your channel, whatever. But I think going viral was something that honestly hurt my motivation in a way.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, it's an interesting take, and I think you're right. I genuinely think you're right. I think if you set the standards so high, once you go, again, you lose that consistency that gets you there in the first place. And I think it's so interesting to hear that your first 2 videos were your biggest, and then from that point, the views didn't get so high, but you still maintained it. You still maintained that consistency, which I think is amazing. And honestly, Griffin, I said this to you privately, and I'll say it publicly as well. I think you're only a few feet away from striking gold. So yeah, I think the content you do is awesome. I think your interviews are awesome. And yeah, hopefully to the moon, my brother. Um, I always like to ask this question. It's just like a new segment I'm doing. And you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But what does happiness mean to you?
I, hmm, I think that's a really good question. I'm trying to be thoughtful with my
Take your
answer.
time. Take your time, please.
I think happiness to me, I'm trying to think of when I'm most happy, right?
Mm,
I think I'm most happy when I'm either spending time with the people that I love or being a positive impact to others.
mm,
I think if I say if money didn't exist, I'd probably go be a high school football coach and just try to build up, impressionable 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year olds, and
yeah.
maybe teach them how to play American football and and just be that super positive impact because I think for me, I have a long way to go and a long way to grow and a lot to learn. But I do think I've been able to come a long way because of the people that have poured wisdom into me, whether that's, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually, however you want to define that. I've had so many amazing mentors and coaches and parents that have poured so much wisdom into me that have helped me, pursue my dreams and grow, start my career, where I think happiness to me is just allowing that to continue to flow through me. I don't want to be I don't know, I'm thinking of a metaphor of a river, right? I don't want to be a dam in the river, a blocker, right? For this flow. I think happiness to me is being able to continue to pass that along to other people, to be a conduit, I guess. That's probably the fanciest word I've said all day. But um that's I guess kind of what I think. So in a perfect world, I could uh, support me and my family and the people I love with being that wisdom conduit, I guess. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that. Thank you for that, Griffin. And I relate with that 100% because I think the times where I'm most happy is I'm the time where I'm giving, whether it's financial, whether it's social, whether it's just bringing yourself and you're giving everything you've got to something. I think that's true happiness for me. I can get super anxious if I don't if I go to bed knowing in my mind I didn't give it my all. And there's nothing scarier to me than, it's not failure that scares me. It's thinking that I didn't, it's knowing that I didn't give it everything, whether that's
Yeah.
spending time with my girlfriend, whether it's spending time in my work, whether it's spending time in my day in general. I think that's so, so important to me. And it's interesting that you share the same
Yeah.
perspective. Speaking about football, let me find it. North Dakota Fighting Hawks. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so how much time you got, right? No,
Go on.
I grew up, I live in the United States, I guess if anybody doesn't know. I grew up in, playing football since I was in third grade, however old that is, probably like 8 or 9, maybe like 10. And no, it's probably like 8. But yeah, nonetheless. And so just started playing, and I was always naturally pretty good and always really enjoyed the sport. And kind of around that time in middle school was like, I want to play college football. I want to, and at the time I want to go to some huge school and, be the star player. And that is not my story. But nonetheless, like I I got recruited to play at the University of North Dakota. The mascot is the Fighting Hawks. They used to be the Fighting Sioux, which is like an Indian tribe. And so there's a lot of the fans are still, we are the Fighting Sioux. So that's what a lot of people say. But we are the Fighting Hawks. I proudly rocked the jersey back there, number 53. And yeah, I was a defensive lineman. So people have no idea what football is. There's a person who throws the football, right? That's the quarterback. My job was to tackle that person before he could throw it. That was my job. So I was a defensive lineman. So I was probably, I don't have the unit conversion, but I was like 6'6'1", 270 pounds.
Oh,
so,
wow.
I don't know. But now I'm down a little bit, trying to lose a little weight. So, but yeah, so that was, I guess, I got recruited. So I grew up near Indianapolis, Indiana. And so it was about 14 hours away from where I went to college. So 18 years old, me and my parents packed up everything I owned and moved, drove basically across the country and moved. And then, played for, I was on the team for 4 years. My freshman year, most people don't necessarily play. So, but for my sophomore, junior, and senior year, played a lot of football and got my 2 degrees, and yeah, so
that's awesome. I think I'm all right to say that I think you're the Power Platform's only college footballer. I think that's a fact. I genuinely believe that's a fact.
I don't know.
I couldn't find anyone within the space that has played football at a college. Please tell me if I'm wrong, because maybe I just don't have enough American friends. But I genuinely think that's a huge USP for Griffin. I mean, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just think it was so awesome. By the way, I had no idea what I was reading. I saw defense. I was like, what does that mean? I saw like I saw the quarterbacks you played with. I was like, what does that mean? So are quarterbacks, do they tend to be like quite slimmer, or are they big people as well? Like, how easy is it to tackle a quarterback?
Quarterbacks are smaller than defensive linemen. Yeah, so they are smaller than me. Quarterbacks, so the biggest people on the field are the offensive linemen. Those are the guys that are in front of the quarterback protecting him, right? Those 5 guys.
So it's your job to get through them.
Yes, so my job was to get through them to tackle the quarterback, I guess, so to speak. If you're tracking. So, but yeah, that's what I did. That's what I played for 3 years in high school and then 4 years in university. So definitely dedicated some time to the craft of, we would call it like rushing the passer, or like chasing after the quarterback. Like that's what we would call that. So yeah.
No, I love it. I think it's so awesome, and we'll definitely catch up in private about maybe teaching me some not college football, American football. That'd be awesome. Griffin, you've given me so much of your time. Thank you so much. I always like to roll out, spend the last couple of minutes rolling out the red carpet, let the people know what you're up to, what do you have going on, what's coming for Griffin. Oh gosh. Oh no. Lickfeldt. That's it. Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. Griffin Lickfeldt.
It's totally okay. No, I will I guess we can't be friends if you keep messing up my name. So no. What's going on for me? So Yeah, you can catch me on Citizen Developer 365. It's the YouTube channel on YouTube, as well as I think I'm just Griffin Lickfeldt on LinkedIn. You can go and follow me there. I generally connect with pretty much everyone, so I'm happy to connect and shoot me a message, and we could build a friendship there. So what am I up to? I'm chipping away. I'm just chopping wood and doing what needs to be done in a sense of
Love it.
the day-to-days of developing Power Platform and Microsoft Dynamics solutions, and trying to share what I know online through LinkedIn and YouTube and the Power Talk series. So if you are somebody who also likes growth and reaching your full potential, I'd recommend you checking out the Power Talk series. That's a lot of people we talk to are other Microsoft MVPs to pick their brain on their career journey, their advice for other people, and how other people can grow too. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Awesome. Love it. And yeah, definitely check out the Citizen Developer 365 channel. It is awesome. I can attain to it personally. Griffin, thank you so much for your time. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for your time. And I hope to catch you in the next one. See you, Griffin.
See ya.